Hi guys, I'm Mike Handley. I'm an Australian Army veteran, joined the Royal Australian Corps of Transport. I was born in Werribee, Victoria in the 70s, and we relocated to western suburbs of Sydney. My father was English from UK with a RAF. Mum was Irish. They did the 70s tour of Australia and decided that they wanted to immigrate over to here. And basically moved into the western suburbs of Sydney, Penrith, where I sort of sowed my oats there. You know, I was a little kid growing up, involved in, break dancing, graffiti. The majority of kids where I grew up in those days were all from broken homes, single mums and dads. So we used to have a bit of a bond as kids, and I remember going to a lot of families' houses, and the mums always made sure that the kids had dinner or had a meal that day. So it was a real, really laid back, but I guess it was that togetherness culture that I really appreciated growing up. You know, we came from nothing, but everyone still had your back, which is something I really stand by today. I sort of changed a few schools. And finally, completed. I think I got up to about year 10, halfway through year 11, when I was finally asked to leave school. I think I was just treading water and filling in some time. I was never an academic. I was more athletic. Played team sports all my life, from athletics to soccer to football, rugby union, touch football. So I really enjoyed that team environment. And then it turned out, early 90s, my sister was dating a guy, and their plan was that he was going to join the military, and they were going to get married and live happily ever after. And as it turned out, I was called the reluctant digger because I didn't really want to join the military. My career aspects weren't exactly many, back in the early 90s. So I was, I think I called myself the reluctant digger back in those days. I didn't want to join the military. My sister's boyfriend at the time decided that was what they wanted to do. We went down to the recruiting phase in Sydney, and halfway through the day I remember walking out and seeing Bruce and saying, "Mate, how's things going?" He hadn't been in for anything. And I said, "Better go up and ask what's going on." They said, "Mate, you didn't make it. We'll see you in 6 months." I went home, and with the congratulations, you've successful in joining the military. And then I think it was a couple of weeks later before I actually hopped on the bus to go to Kapuka. My friends took me out into town on the drink, celebrating Mick joining the military. And as it turned out, I got arrested. I got 3 counts of assault, malicious damage, and state railway property. And anyway, cut along again with that one. I was attacked on the way home by 3 guys, and I got up and sort of gave a bit back to them. They overpowered me, then they ran. They took one of my shoes, and as I'm getting escorted off the train by the police, they've said to me, "Where's your shoe?" And I explained to them that I was beaten up, and they said, "Well, we got called that for no apparent reason you were just going crazy in the train." I thought, well, that's strange. What about all the blood and the bruising? They went, "Yeah, your story makes out." And I said, as we walked past, the 3 guys ended up throwing the shoe at us, and the coppers said, "What was that?" And I said, "That was my shoe." So we went to court, got everything dropped, rung up the army, and they said, "You're the type of bloke we want in the Defence Force." And they set me out a new date, and off I went. And that was the start of my military career. I started out as being a reluctant soldier, but it turned me into a totally different person, which was what I needed. The direction, the guidance, the discipline. Those little things that I was lacking as a young adult growing up, and I think the Defence Force, installed that in me. So basic training, it's I suppose it's chaos for many people. Back in the early 90s when I went through, there was a lot of yelling. There was grumpy corporals and sergeants continually screaming at you to get you in line. So it was a massive culture shock. But what I learned very, very quickly was it was a team environment. So, almost instantly, I remember my roommate. I basically, me and him would make one bed every morning when we got up for roll call, and we'd stand in a hallway with sharing a blanket to try and hide it from the corporal. And the corporal never made it up, all the way up to the hallway and back again and to catch us. So eventually, I think it was a few weeks down the track where every morning we were the first people marching down to the toilets to shave and shower and everything. And one of the corporals thought, geez, every morning these guys are killing it. So I think it was week 4 or 5, he basically walked up and witnessed that our bed was made. And boy, was that a mistake. I think we had to make everyone's bed for a week as punishment. But again, it's one of those things that, fit in or you're going to find it very, very difficult. I really enjoyed it. So I went through, I think we had roughly about 50 positions available when you left the basic training for your job. And it was like 4 jobs for transport. Engineers had 1 or 2. And I think infantry just had the majority of them. They just needed some more infantry soldiers. I was always that bigger guy. Endurance wasn't my thing. I was a short sprinter. All my athletics career had been explosive sports, with short run. So I was never that endurance guy. So it was something I really had to build. And when the opportunity came to choose your corps, I automatically wanted to go into transport and get some driver's tickets and things because I didn't have a license. So I focused on any of my weaknesses in basic training, which was weapons. Although my father was military, and we had the old 303 rifles and things lying around the house back in the 70s, I'd never really experienced firing or picking up a rifle. But again, one of my weaknesses, which I could see early on, so I spent a lot of time with other soldiers in there who were more proficient with the weapons to pick my skills up in that area. And it was all fine. It was good, We left there, I think it was March, June or July in 91. I marched into Puckapunyal, which was one bloody cold place. For me, who, I'm used to having 3 or 4 doonas or just shorts, I'm really a summer type of guy, but it was bloody cold. And my first introduction there was because we were a week or 2 early before the course started. They decided to put us on a NavX where they gave us a map, and we went around these fields in Victoria, Puckapunyal, Seymour, that, there was miles and miles and miles of navigation, and it was snowing, sleet, rain, and you'd find a grid location at night time, and you'd prop down with your hoochie and your sleeping bag, and you'd wake up in the morning with about 6 or 7 other blokes all just bungled up trying to keep warm with you until we got a next checkpoint and off we went. So I spent the first 1 or 2 weeks at Puckapunyal out in the snow, absolutely freezing, thinking, God, I'm not really suited to this environment anymore. And the same thing sort of happened once you went through the transport corps and the course. You then got to choose, or you got to make 3 choices of where you wanted to be stationed. Sydney and Townsville was massive back then, and Darwin was just kicking off. So I didn't want to go to either of them, any of them. I wanted to just go stay, somewhere where it was semi-okay weather-wise. But they sent me to Townsville, which was fine because, that was field force. So you were training to be deployed, whereas I found, pardon me, throughout my career, we have there's 2 armies in itself. There's a domestic and then the field force. So obviously the field force trains to be deployed. The domestic side of the military takes care of all the training establishments, promotion courses and things. So in my role, you had to learn both to lead. So it was quite interesting. I thoroughly, I enjoyed my role. I was lucky enough, after my first 12 months of being stationed at Townsville, Somalia had kicked off. And that was the UN's, United Nations contribution to Somalia and the American-led Operation Restore Hope. So it was an area that was basically corroded with chaos. The government, there was no law, and we were tasked to sort of re-establish law and order and provide humanitarian aid and relief to that area, which was exciting. Again, it's finally, it's like you've done your apprenticeship and then you finally get to work on your first car as a mechanic and away you go. So we were sort of, there was a lot of excitement over there. We did I think it was about a month preparation before we deployed, and that was more along, again, they do it really well these days, but we were like, post-Vietnam, we were probably the biggest deployment at that stage. So we really had to sort of focus on, where we were going, the cultures, the people, the environment, and I think we learned a lot from the old Iraqi war, where we had that Bravo 20 patrol where, they're in the desert, but you see them at night time and they're rugged up with jumpers, and it was sub-zero temperatures at night time. So, we're sort of preparing for everything. And suddenly I remember one of the greatest things too was we were sent over there by Qantas on a plane. So we deployed 2 ships. I think it was a HMS Jervis Bay and a Tobruk. And we deployed a lot of the military personnel via aircraft. And it was Qantas, because I remember the stewardess as we were leaving the ship at Mogadishu the plane at Mogadishu, and she was thanking everyone and saying, enjoy your trip, hope you have a great trip and everything. And someone said, you understand that we're actually deployed to a combat zone here, it's not a holiday. And I remember her face just changing, and then she ran down the stairwell and she wanted to hug and say sorry to everyone that she'd already shook the hand, because she realised that, some of us may not be coming back from here. We walked down the gangplank, stood on the airfield at Mogadishu, and then they opened fire at us. So there was a couple of towers, and they just started unloading, it would have been, AK-47, 7.62 ammunition at us. But it came, and there was a couple of hundred soldiers on the ground with no weapons. They were all still under the plane, so we all sort of scattered, and that was our introduction to the environment that we were about to enter. I think it was a civil war, and the government and the Defence Force, went at it with each other, and the general public were the ones who suffered the most. So there was no law. The gun ruled the street. There was warlords that were controlling locations and areas. So whenever food convoys came through, they would loot them, and the product would never get to the end user. So we were, deployed in there to make sure that everything re-established law and order within that environment. But I think mainly it was just, to provide some support to the people, the population, because they were the ones that were, starving and not getting the benefits of the aid that we were, providing, or globally the aid that was coming in to them. So they were really, really, suffering. And, you're seeing small kids starving, bugger all clothes, and you think years later, about your kids here, how lucky we are. I'd seen women who walked kilometres with a bucket of brown water. They'd line up for hours, and they'd be walking home with a bucket of brown water, and you'd be thinking, what are they doing here? But that's what they had to do to survive, and it was a culture shock. It was a great learning environment for many of us. And I think it really cemented, what you had back at home, the importance of what you were doing. Because now as a father, my daughters, I want the best for them. That environment, third world country, and having to fight for everything every day you get up would just be, a lot for any young kid to bear. So we were deployed it was about 18 weeks, 4 to 5 months. Mogadishu was a real crazy place. It was, what do they used to call it? Like the UK Corral or something. It was like the Wild West. The gun ruled the street. There was no laws, but there was hundreds of thousands of people, and they were like ants. They were just moving around, gravitating towards whatever they could get. So at one stage, we've left the airport, and we're deploying to Baidoa in like a 10-vehicle convoy. And we went through Mogadishu, and they all just ran at us, like thousands of people. And you can imagine, the shock on your face when you've got hostile people running towards you, and you just want to break, or patrol and just bolt. But you're in a convoy, you've got procedures to follow. So it was a big eye-opener. Like, one was the amount of people, and then to see visually, the faces of these starving people. It's like they've got that survival mechanism built in, and they're struggling to survive, but they know you're here to help. So they are very receptive of you. It was more the adolescents, the teenagers, and the young adult men that saw us as a threat, because again, there was no law, so the gun ruled the street, and if they wanted something from you, they would shoot you or just take it. So we really wanted to make a presence in the main part of town in Baidoa by actively patrolling continuously, so there was a military presence that the people could come to us. It was nice to be able to, years of training, put that into practice, and just to see what level your training was at. The bonds, that great Australian mateship, one of those things, and again, history shows us this, and I love this about Australians, is that whenever we're faced with adversity, we have a great sense of humour as Australians, and that can really change the mood or your environment to boost morale and also, continue the fight for a bit longer. There was many times there, where I'd found an old comic and I put masking tape over the captions and I reworded the comic to suit what was happening in Somalia. And it was in headquarters, and every night people would walk past and have a read of it, have a chuckle. But it was that, that giggle and that sense of, good mate, I love that, that's bloody great. I knew as I was doing it, this is a part of history. This is, and again, there was previous conflicts that Australia's been into, and also, the ones that we've been part of today. There was always those situations where when an Australian soldier has had his back to the wall, he's always got time for a quick joke, and I think that's what really makes Australians quite unique, that many times when I've been put in situations where I just didn't want to go on, it was too difficult, I wanted to quit, humour got me over it. And it might have just been a funny joke from someone who broke the mood. And again, I've got, there's so many instances there where, I did silly things just to make people smile and to make them forget about what they were doing for 5 minutes. I'd put up silly little photos in the headquarters that when people would come in, they'd see it, and they were all like, again, the Australian Army, they were either rude or, or they were funny or something, but it really made people just stop and have a think and have a laugh, and that was enough for them to go on for the next day. But it's just one of those traits, I think, Australians, when we're up against it, humour will always break that tension. And I think one of my reports, it said there that my sense of humour was an asset to the section, and it broke many tense situations, which really diffused, a lot of conflict in our own section. I miss it. I miss that. I think somewhere along the lines, I just grew up and that sense of humour just changed a little bit more to thinking about business and growing up. But, if I ask my kids today, is Dad funny? I think they'll say yeah, because, even sitting here thinking about just last night, something stupid I said which made them all laugh, that's what dads do. I'm a veteran, but I'm a dad and a father first. I think my military career was great. It put me... It's what I needed as a young adult growing up, and it set me in a good position for life. And I do, even today, 30 years later, I've still got those idiosyncrasies and little bits and things I do that were always related back to the military. So I was quite proud of my service, had a really good time, deployed twice. Papua New Guinea was another strange area, totally different to Somalia, in Bougainville. And, we'd gone into an area to provide safe space for peace talks, and the militia government had fallen apart, and obviously, and again, the general population were the ones who suffered. So this village, the whole town had left and moved up into the mountains. So they were just living in the flora and fauna. So you drive through town and the vegetation growing over all the buildings. So it was just like a jungle. But when you actually walk through and open them up, you could see all the houses, and we actually walked through a few of them, and there was everything was still in there. So it was really crazy that they just all came and ran. So it was a very strange environment. But we had the Vanuatuans, Tongans, Fijians, New Zealand Defence Force with us too. So we cemented a few really good bonds with those nations, and I'm sure that they think Australians are a bloody great bunch of people to have on their side, and I'm sure that we appreciated having them side by side us as well. A lot of funny things with the betel nut and carver. The Fijians always bought at the carver at night time, and you're sitting there with your corporal, your sergeant, and you're comatized by this carver stuff. And the next day we all get the runs, and you've got the 20 soldiers fighting for two toilets. I enjoy my military career. Would I go back tomorrow? Yeah, of course I would. But I tell you, I'd have to sit down and really think hard, because it's changed a lot since I was in there. But I still think I'd give it a good go, and it's probably more for the mateship that I know you make in there. You make lifetime friends. I've got 30 years. I've got mates who call me daily or weekly that I serve with. Social media is great because it all keeps us in contact, but we do have some lifelong bonds that I've got mates who aren't afraid to ring me up and tell me that they love me, that appreciate me, and vice versa. So it's one of those little things that the military, embedded in us, that brotherhood and that mateship, that's there for life, You have our good times and our bad times. There's times where we'll fight, and there's other times where, we'll hug. But at the end of the day, that's life, and we're mates, and we know that. And it's good to know that if they ever need a chat, that they will reach out, and vice versa. They know that I'm there for them too, which is good. And I think that's just something that, working in a team, you've trained hard, you've fought hard, you've had good times. There's been births, deaths, and marriages. You celebrated, everything together as a group of guys and girls, and it keeps with you for life. There's not a day where I don't have a memory of something that was good or bad that I experienced in the military. Mainly it was all good, I had a really good run, I enjoyed it. Would I like to see my kids join the military? I hope that I've installed enough discipline and respect in them now to not want to go in there, but it's always available. My daughter, she's 15, she's doing Navy Cadet. She's been doing it now for just over a year and loves it. She's been promoted 3 times. She's always coming home and saying, "Dad, I want to join the Navy." So I'm open to that. It's a discussion we'll have down the track. But it's there for her, My little 8-year-old kid, God, who knows what she wants to be at the moment. And it's a circus clown one week and it's a unicorn the other week. But I just love being able to be around them and watch them grow and not experience, some of the things I have in life. And they're not, good or in bad. It's part of growing up. And I just hope that, that they really appreciate, their life, the sacrifices many of us have made so they've got this life. And also, they see a lot. And this is the great thing about kids. They're like magnets. They see me interacting with veterans daily, see me hug veterans, shake hands, kiss, all those things. And they can tell when I come up to someone who I actually really know quite well, who's like a brother to me or a sister, and those who aren't, because of the way we respond around each other. And they feel safe, and it's great because I still get feedback from parents saying, "I love your kids." They come up and give me a hug, and I say because they know the importance of a hug. It's free. It doesn't cost a thing. It comes from the heart. It means something to give you a hug. And they know that, growing up, when I used to come home from work, they would stop whatever they were doing and Mum would make them meet me at the door. And that would get Dad to switch off from being work dad to family dad. And it's something that I had to work on because I used to come home with a lot of stress, with PTSD and depression. There was things that were really weighing me down, and I felt like I had that cloud walking, following me everywhere. But when I came home, I had to shake that off because I didn't want my kids to have to go through that pain that I was feeling at that time. And our natural response is to attack you. Hurt people, and we just want to, and again, it's just a reaction that we have. So I needed to break that culture. And it'd been many times where we'd sat down as a family and we cried together and I apologised and said, Dad was just having a really bad day. And unfortunately, I had to vent, which may have sounded a bit aggressive coming from a bloke who was about 130 kilo and 6'4". A little kid can really, that's not what Dad wants to be like. So we really worked on ourselves. Well, I did on myself with the help of my wife. Because I just wanted to, for me, I just wanted a happy environment. I didn't want to constantly be at fight with myself or the demon that was, tearing me apart. So it's a battle, but it's a work in progress. And I know every day I get a chance to improve myself, or I don't. And if I don't improve myself, I can't expect to have a great day. I've got to work at it daily. And again, it doesn't have to be something major. If I go for a walk with my dog, which you constantly hear barking in the background, it just gets me out and clears my head for the morning, and it starts my day into a very proactive and positive day. Now, there's going to be things throughout the day that get thrown at me that might cause my, aggression to increase or make me withdraw. But I've got, things in place. So, if I do have a day, I've got friends I can call and just offload and vent. And 9 times out of 10, it's just mate, I've just had enough because some idiot cut me off on the road. But that's that brotherhood, that friendship, that someone's always there. and I was with my kids. It's like breaking that culture, saying it's okay to talk. It's not a sign of weakness anymore. It used to be in the 70s, as we were talking growing up with our fathers where, they drank cans of KB and they, their jokes were, considered racist in these days, but that's what they did. So I just sort of said, look, it's time to evolve. There's no more excuses. If you guys need to talk, I can't fix it or help in any way unless I know. So with my kids, I really practice that. Let's talk, If I have to spend 20 minutes with each child once a night and just ask how the day was or communicate, just find out how everything's going in their world. Life's hard just waking up some mornings. But, that doesn't mean you need to give in. Let's look for the positives in today and enjoy them, But again, I'm not a materialistic type of person. I appreciate anyone who makes an effort for me because I know that the process it takes for that to happen. Whereas if you just did it for free or bought it, there wouldn't be that experience. So it's just something that, one of those little things in our family, in our culture that we have here that, it's kindness, it's free, and we understand that by doing that, it means a lot more than just buying something and handing it to you. So we're really, really basic down to, layman's terms here. Again, I come from the western suburbs of Sydney where we went, we used to envy the kids who went to Disneyland every year, that had money and, I think our whole day was like a fishing ride down a local river for a couple of hours or something. So we never really had much. So we really appreciate what we have today. And us as humans, it's anything that comes from the heart means so much more than anything else. And my daughters, they know that. They kiss me daily goodbye, call me throughout the day. I've just allowed my daughter only of this week. She's now finally got Facebook, and I think every day I'm getting 10 just pictures of her doing stuff at school. Like, God bless her, I've tried to protect her as much as I can from that type of thing and made her aware of the things that are involved with social media. But it's part of being an adult and a parent. Life has its challenges, but I wouldn't give it up for quits. I love my interactions with my kids daily, and I'm so glad that that the environment, the loving environment that my wife has created in his family keeps me here today. Anzac Day for me, it's a day full of great memories, reconnecting with old mates, catching up with old mates, getting calls from guys and girls I serve with, which is fantastic. I'm proud of my service and of our military history. So, I know that the only way I can make Anzac Day a good day is by getting involved in it in some capacity. Having kids too now, there was a stage there in my life where I hid the medals, I isolated and withdrew. I didn't want to be involved, and it didn't bring up bad memories of my service or my time in the military. It might have just brought up anger from just past exhaustion that I had through PTSD that fostered in the background, and because Anzac Day was thrown at me, it sort of, it reared its ugly head again. But for me, it was a battle that I had to win. I looked at the positives as opposed to the negatives. I had the excuses like, oh God, we're going to go out and do this again. I'm going to remember this and remember that. Do I want all that to happen today? And then I just turned it. And again, it was probably a lot of the public perception. We seem to, some years we're really pro Anzac Day. And then there's other years where they sort of just quietly slip it in there, and you think that's a year where you just really want to either withdraw and not be involved, or it's your time to stand up and make everyone aware of the importance of Anzac Day to you. I think one of the beauties that we have as veterans is giving back to the community. So a lot of the times I'm called upon to go to schools with a range of other veterans around the Anzac Day week and Remembrance Day week. We sort of we get asked to go and talk to the kids about our Defence Force life and our experiences. And get them a little bit of an understanding of the Australian military history, which is fantastic because again, we're giving back and we're letting these other kids, potential recruits down the track, about the military life. It's part of Australia's history, which is great. I've always loved the fact that I did deploy, I did serve my country. I gave back. My mother was someone that, I always wanted to make proud. And again, I think that's just something, that kids want to do as kids. And coming from that poorer culture, where Dad worked every day, and Mum worked every day, and Dad worked double shifts some nights just to put bread on, food on the table. And then they separated when we were 13. And there were days there where I remember just seeing Dad had been eating a bowl of peas for dinner, and he'd make sure I had a steak or a sausage, and it just really looked after me. And it's probably something that I've inherited from him, where, I can eat one piece of bread and give my kids, rump steak, and I'm happy because I know they've got a warm meal in their stomach and they've got enough energy to power on for the next day. We tend to, I suppose, self-harm in strange ways, be it malnutrition. We don't care for ourselves a lot. We put other people, first. And I think it's just, it's life. You identify these things and then you make an effort to repair them. So at any time where I've been at my weakest, or felt like I was suffering, it's me who's going to pull me out of this. There's no magic pill. I know it's a work, daily. I need to do something. I chip away at it. And one of those things I always say to people is, what have you done today to improve your situation? And of course, if they've done nothing, well, you can't expect to have a rosy outcome. But if you put a little bit of effort in, you're going to benefit a lot more. And as I mentioned previously, it doesn't always have to be, a challenge. You can break it down into really small pieces. Like, as I said, I go for a walk with a dog. It's a tick in the box for me. It leaves me in a positive mind frame. And the endorphins that it releases, are great. And of course, when you're out with the dog, everyone wants to come and say hi. So it gets you to talk to people. So no longer am I bottled up and withdrawing from people. It helps me interact daily. And I know a lot of veterans the same way. We tend to have that bit of excuse as to why we don't want to go and do that. But if we thought, hey, it's not because you're going to see people, it's because you're going to meet new people, form some new friendships, So you just change your outlook.